Then he says, whoever shall guard all of the law and yet stumble to one point is guilty of all. And what he's trying to simply say is, it doesn't matter which piece of the puzzle you're guilty of, you're guilty. So in other words, if I break one commandment, it doesn't mean I broke all of them. That is not what he's saying, and you should know that. It's pretty obvious he's not making that point. He's simply saying it doesn't matter which one you break. You might think, oh, because he says, the one who said, do not commit adultery and do not murder, well, those are like, oh, well, I didn't do that. But he said also to love your neighbor as yourself. He also said a bunch of things about how you treat each other. He says, and they're all equal in weight when it comes to guilt. Guilty of one is guilty of any of them. Not guilty of all of them. It means that guilty of any one is like being guilty of anyone. Pick one. Well, I don't know what I did was so bad. I didn't murder anybody. I didn't do it. Well, but it's still breaking the command. Brings the same penalty. What's the wages of sin? Death. Is breaking a commandment sin? That's the definition of sin. He says, whoever shall guard and yet stumble at one point, he's guilty of all. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not commit murder. Now, if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you become a transgressor of the law. Transgressor of the law is transgressor of the law. As a matter of fact, if you were labeled with a label over your head, floating around saying transgressor of the law, it doesn't matter which law. Somebody might be curious, which one did you break? The result is the same. You're still called transgressor of the law. It could be you broke the Sabbath. It could be that you ate something you shouldn't eat. It could be any of a myriad of things. But that still gets you looked at by him as transgressor of the law. Just doesn't matter which one you broke. So he's saying, I think stop being so self-righteous thinking, I'm so this and I'm so that. But meanwhile, you're doing these things he told you not to do. Okay, he told you not to do. He says, so speak and so do as those who are to be judged by the Torah of freedom. Okay, so he's still now calling that law, which he lists things like murder, adultery. So he knows which law you're talking about here. We're talking about the Torah. And he still calls it freedom. But you are going to be judged according to that law. And when you're going to be judged, he said, it won't matter which ones you did and which ones you didn't do. What's going to matter is that you did or didn't do. Doesn't matter which ones. What matters is, did you do them or not? Stop thinking that, well, the ones I broke weren't that big a deal. Well, you're not the judge. He is. And he just said through James that, well, they're all the same. And you just got to really understand that they're all the same. Stop thinking you're better than your brother because they're doing something that you think is so obviously horrible. Meanwhile, where's that plank in your eye that you haven't dealt with? That's kind of what the plank and the twig thing's all about. You've got that sin or that thing that you struggle with that you don't think is such a big deal, and you're ignoring it, but you're so busy looking at, because people will come up to me and you'll go to each other and say, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Can you believe they did? Can you believe, what about you? You're already in trouble just saying all that. Literally, what you just did is already just as problematic as, if not more, than whatever you claim they did. But you're going to do it thinking, oh, I'm going to say this for probably the 100th time at least. Do you understand that you're here for one reason? I may say things like making decisions, but the main thing is that you're here to grow up. Immature, young, like teenage and younger, they talk about people that way. And they tear each other up and do all that stuff because they're young. They don't know better. They don't understand the consequences and the damage that does both to you and to the other person and how you mess with people's reputations or whatever. But you're supposed to be growing up. And as a grown-up, we shouldn't be doing that. Okay, this is why we have something called Lashon Hara. Lashon, the tongue, evil, right? Hara. Evil speech.